those headphones. Okay, I don't know. Maybe I'll wait just a few seconds to center myself before I start. It's been very challenging for me to get online and do live streams. I'm not sure why. It just is what it is. Perhaps it's like one of my daughters here in Israel did have a baby 2+ weeks ago, thank God. And we did have some sound and light show from Iran, actually the evening before she had the baby. And it has been Pesach, Passover, which is very involved, but there's an inner energy that's just pushing back against me. But it's such an important day that I just feel I have no choice but to be here. So I'm going to try to share as concisely as I can. I'm teaching a class in less than an hour and a half for a private class. So today is the 28th of Nisan. It's an extraordinary day. As you may have heard me say in the past, every day has special energies, especially the holidays on the Jewish calendar and the Hasidic calendar, the mystical calendar. There are the regular holidays like Hanukkah and Sukkot and Passover and so forth. And then there are the mystical holidays that represent certain levels of Torah coming into the world on the much more mystical levels. The mystical Torah, starting with Kabbalah, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the founder of Authentic Kabbalah, at least the most famous, said that with this work, with Authentic Kabbalah, which Hasidus is also a part of that and deeper than that, actually. So he said with this wisdom, that our people can be redeemed with mercy, with rachamim. So that's really what we're aiming for. So on the 28th of Nisan in 1991, a special, unprecedented, eternal superpower energy came into the world, and that is through the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, saying an unexpected surprise sicha, discourse, a talk, which created a lot of consternation in the neighborhood Crown Heights in Brooklyn, where the Rebbe lived, where I also lived at that time, and around the world. And basically, and some of you may be familiar with this, others not, but the Rebbe basically said at that time, in short, he said about himself, I have done everything that I can to bring Mashiach, to bring the Redeemer, to bring the redemption. And all of it has been hevel v'larik, meaning emptiness, nothingness, because Mashiach has not yet come. And the Rebbe said, all I can do now is to give it over to you. I wasn't actually there live. I heard the synopsis that was I guess it was on Shabbat. And I heard, no, not on Shabbat, it was in the evening. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to go back. It was 1991, so it was a while ago. I heard about it right after, and it changed my life forever, forever, forever in the deepest possible ways. So the Rebbe said, all I can do is give it over to you, that you do everything you can in a manner of the lights of Tohu, the infinite chaotic divine light, in the vessels of Tikkun, brought down into a structure in the finite world, to prevail on God, to send Mashiach, to prevail upon people. I'm paraphrasing, to demand Mashiach. May there be 10 who among you of the Am Kashay Orif, which is a stiff-necked people. It's a phrase that God and Moses use a lot for the Jewish people in the Bible. Very stubborn. It's a double-edged sword. You know, we're stubborn enough to keep the Torah in the face of everything. For thousands of years, we're stubborn enough to still rebel in the face of everything for thousands of years, and that's just what it is. So the Rebbe said, basically, may there be found among you 10 the stick neck of Am Kashay Orif, who will not give up, who will prevail upon God to send Mashiach. Again, I'm paraphrasing, just want to do this quickly, and the most important energies to transmit so that we can all step into them with power. And may there be 1 or 2 or 3 among you who know what needs to be done and how it should be done. And that was it. And I was at my house. I had just a little while before giving birth. I think I might have talked about this once before, at least, but a long time ago. I'd just given birth to my third child, who was damaged by malpractice. She was strangled by the cord, and she was in the neonatal ICU. And I had two little babies, then 2 and 3, almost 3 and almost 4. And I had a mother's helper that came a couple hours a day, and I had to drive her home. And she lived in a dormitory called Machon Chana, and I dropped her off and I walked in, which I normally wouldn't have done. But there was a rabbi from Crown Heights, Rebbe Majeski, who was giving over a synopsis of what the Rebbe had said. And there were a lot of women in there, all ages of women. I was quite young at the time and a young mother, and didn't have really any confidence in terms of anything public or anything spiritual or anything activist. It was out of my realm completely. And yet when I heard those words in this packed room, in this dormitory, in the large living room, dining room of the dormitory, I heard these words, and the thought that came to my mind like a lightning flash was, wait, is the Rebbe saying that we could end death and suffering? Is the Rebbe saying that we could end sickness, that my baby could be well, that every baby could be well, that every person could be well, that suffering would leave the world? And I can't properly describe the feeling that I had then, but literally it was like kind of like a lightning bolt came down into the center of my head, down into the ground, and just cut time in half. So there was the past, and then there was the present and the future. And they call it a landmark event, a paradigm shift. I don't know what words to use, but I do believe that I was at the time imbued with something bigger than myself. And from that moment on, I was living and breathing. What can I do? Or really at first it was like, what can I get the powerful people to do to usher in this new era? And I didn't have any credibility. I had no authority. I had no, like I said, confidence. I had no spiritual connection. I had no spiritual insight, but I did have this fire that like burst forth inside of me. And so it just started with me I had a friend who was much more influential, and I convinced her to make a meeting of the influential ladies, the older ladies. Actually, just to finish about this, being in this living room of this dorm, people were standing up on chairs and sharing what they thought should be done. And nobody ever heard the Rebbe say anything like that. And people didn't know what was going to happen or what they were supposed to do or how. And, about 2 a.m, like there were all kinds of proposals, like let's go to the Great Synagogue 770 and not leave until Mashiach comes. And I was in favor of that proposal. Forcing the hand. It was just a time, and other people said, let's just say Psalms, let's create, an ongoing effort. And I'm like, what ongoing effort? The Rebbe said, now, it has to be now. So thus started my quest. Thus started my spiritual activation. And like in so many cases, it didn't come from, positive inspiration. It's really good. It would be so good. It will be so good. Is so good whenever we can bring ourselves to illuminate and to come on fire from a positive inspiration. It's not so common because the identity has a very strong hold on us, and the so-called comfort zone, which is really uncomfortable but very familiar, has a very strong hold on us. I guess that's why, this whole month, this whole past 6 weeks, I started this metamorphosis project, and my intention was to come on almost every day, and I'm going to share a lot of things. And that's when the resistance came in, and it became really, really difficult to even get myself to show up. Today, I would not have come on to live stream if it wasn't that this is such an important day. I don't want it to be missed. There's an energy and a power in this day that is in no other day. And it's not just what I can tell you, having been there then and whatever my experience is and whatever I know now, but it's a transmission of energy that if you're interested in receiving that energy, maybe even say so. Do I even have access to the chat? It looks like, oh yeah, here's the chat. Hi, Anna Sarah. Anyway, if you want to receive this energy, at least, say to yourself, say to God, I'm ready to receive. What is the energy that I'm asking you to say yes to? It is the energy of a supernatural transformation. I titled this video, this live stream, Mission Impossible Possible, because in general, the mission, God's mission and intention in creation is impossible. A teacher that I once had described it as trying to get an infinitely large basketball into an infinitely tiny hoop that is way out of our reach. The core mission is to reveal the supernatural and the infinite within the finite. It's an utter paradox to reveal the divine soul and its absolute connection and awareness to God. The divine soul, the core of the soul, is a piece of God. That it says this, it's a mamish, literally a piece of God's essence, not the piece that people are pointing to when they say we're all God. That's in a way it's true, in a way it's total BS. But at the core of us, everything is God. There isn't anything else. But at the core of us, as change makers, as Torah learners, as cosmic transformers, we literally have the divine power, that nuclear force of creation that we can activate through our thoughts, speech, and actions. And especially when we connect those thoughts, speech, and action to a divine mission transmitted to us by a central soul. So I want to talk about impossible possible. I want to talk about that. And I also want to talk about what is a central soul. So Moses was a central soul. Adam was a central soul. God created man, one man. Man is created in the shape of the cosmos. The first man, Adam Harishon, is created in the basic structure of Adam Kadmon, which is the blueprint for creation, which is also man. Adam means man. So the core of creation, the shape of creation, the structure of creation, the epitome of creation is the rectified man. What is the rectified man? It is a human, or a physical human being and physical world, cosmos, that is in the image of God. What is the image of God? God is all creative. God is infinitely powerful. God is pure truth. God is pure goodness, but pure goodness doesn't come out. This is also important. Pure goodness doesn't come out as an endless flow of kindness. Imagine if you did that, you gave yourself every single thing that you wanted all the time. What would happen to your body? What would happen to any part of you? What would happen to the people in your life? So it's not about hedonism. It's not about constantly just, showering at not being being a yes man sort of creator. It's about transmitting infinity and divinity through a structure that is complex and nuanced and supernatural, and yet physical and natural. That's really what's happening here. Now we are in the final generation. We've been the final generation. I guess the mission of the final generation was officially, formally inaugurated on the 28th of Nisan, the anniversary that we are sitting in right now, that cosmic energy, in 1991. Actually, the Vilna Gaon, who was a contemporary of the Alter Rebbe, the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, late 1700s, early 1800s, also predicted that the redemption would start, the birth process into redemption would start in 1991, or thereabouts. So that was the formal inauguration of our mission, of the generation. Now, in the context of this, of Torah, in the context of mission, a generation doesn't mean 20 years or 25 years or, the parents or the grandparents. It refers to the generation that's connected to a certain leader, to a certain central soul. So like I said, Adam was the central soul. There's nothing more important, really, than understanding what the central soul is, because it's key to our activation, to our fulfilling our mission as the blueprint for creation, as man created in the image of the divine. So in order to allow us to exist, try to track with me, try to feel the energy here, because I'm trying to say a lot in a little bit of time, and really to capture the energy so that we can bring it down on a whole new level. That's why really I'm talking right now. So what is the potential that we're bringing down? It is the potential to work on behalf together with the central soul on behalf of the central souls of every generation and the souls of every generation. Actually, every generation could be back here right now. That's why there's so many people, because the souls keep splintering into different bodies in different times. And, we're all here to finish the job. We're here to finish the job that we began when Adam was created. Anyway, the central soul is like the unifying force. The central soul is many things, but it's the word Rebbe refers to the central souls of the last, since the Baal Shem Tov on. They're called Rebbe. Actually, Moses was called Rebbe. Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our Rebbe. So Rebbe is an acronym for Rosh B'nai Yisrael, which means Rosh means head of the children of Israel. And really, that is all the souls. The original souls were the souls of Israel. Then Adam was one, right? And then he was male and female. It was one that was male and female. Then they got separated, like God and his masculine, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and his feminine, the Shekhinah, got separated into two, so they could build a face-to-face relationship. The Shekhinah is the root and source and essence of all the souls. So you have this relationship, male and female, between God and the souls, and you have a parallel relationship, male and female, between Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava. But then, the soul, that one soul, splintered. We're into cells. We're all cells in this cosmic body of Adam, and each smaller splinter comes down into a body for a more specific mission as we go through our evolutionary process of creating man. We are co-creating man. That's what we're here for. Like, we are God's art. The world is God's art. When you look at a beautiful painting, or you hear a beautiful symphony, or you see an incredible sunset, that's art, right? That's art. And what is it that makes you get goosebumps? What is it that makes you stare at it and that try to feel that indefinable something? What's happening with real great art, whether it's cosmic or human, is that the artist is embedding some truth from his own soul, from his own essence, into that work of art. And when someone's looking at it with intention, it's activating that same truth, that same illumination, that same truth, I'll say, and beauty in their own soul. So when you look at art and it gives you goosebumps, it's because you're looking at yourself and you're looking at God, and it's giving you goosebumps. It's like a mirror in that way. So we are God's ultimate art. When God created world through the 6 days of creation, and created the world, the cosmos, through the 6 days of creation, he ended with man. Man was the culmination on the 6th day, late in the 6th day. And that is because man is the ultimate target. Man is the ultimate perfection of creation. Man is the ultimate structure, the world being our backdrop for God to reveal himself and to express himself in infinitely creative ways. The problem is that in order to allow for us to exist, to have free choice, to be independent, to be able to have a relationship with God, we had to be put in a state of intense amnesia and self-centeredness. And that's through the body and through the ego and through the identity. So the process of co-creating this ultimate work of art out of ourselves and our world, that requires an inner transformation, so that those things that have held us back, that have created this separation, this block, this concealment, this veil between us and the ultimate truth, the only truth, God, and the essence of our own beings, that has to be transformed. That has to be made transparent to its source. And that's what we're meant to be doing now. Again, impossible possible. It's an impossible mission if it's just people doing it. If you were just, like people like to say, oh, we're only human. If you were only human, forget it. There's no way. If you're only human, you're subject to all the laws of nature, and they're pretty intense, and you are small and relatively helpless in a very big, seemingly bigger and crazier world. Lately, I've been feeling like we were like somehow little detour, but back in the day when I was doing like summits, like a few times a year, quantum healing, consciousness, and soul, I interviewed, it was in 2010, I think, I interviewed a guy called Dr. David Anderson, who was a time travel researcher, a physicist, and he actually seemed extremely credible. Like, I really liked him. I believed him. And he was working, he said, on something called a time warp generator, time warp field generator. And I guess it was like this glass or plexi, some kind of, I don't know what the transparent material was, that inside, through some means, they generated this field that they could put plants in it, for example, and the plants would grow really, really fast, or they'd grow backwards. So he personally had not done anything with people yet, or so he told me, but he said in places like India and other places, this is back in 2010, they were already sending humans through time. And he said that the reason why he needed to come on and, to be interviewed wherever he could be was because the governments and corporations, the fear was that they were going to take the time travel and make time wars. Can you imagine time wars? Like every time you don't get what you want, you just go back and you start over again. So it could be that we're in time wars right now. I'm just wondering. Dr. David Anderson, by the way, the last time I spoke to him was probably 2011. He had just recently made a movie at that time demonstrating the time warp field, because he said when people would watch it generate, they would have like profound spiritual experiences. They'd start laughing, crying, whatever. And he wanted to show people, and he said he was just waiting for the last sign-offs from the government, and then he disappeared. And not only I've never heard of him, you can't really find him on the internet, whatever. So I don't know what happened there, but I've been wondering lately, just the last week or so, if we somehow got shifted into some kind of more Mad Max universe, even though, yes, what we're finding out about, I guess it always existed. There were always pretty weird and sometimes horrible things happening, and they were beneath the surface, and now they're coming out. But somehow it just seems like something changed, like the pace, the rhythm, the craziness of it all. There's just a feeling of craziness that's just so all pervasive right now. Not really the topic, but I did want to mention it. So anyway, our job, if we were only human, we could not do it. But we're not only human. We carry within us a piece of God, the Chelek Elika Mimah, literally a piece of God at the core of the soul. And when we connect ourselves to the divine mission, we're partners with God. And when you're partners with somebody, you have access to their resources, you have their help, you have their support. And when we are connecting to the central soul, and this is part of the message of the 28th of Nisan and part of the power and potential, when we connect to the central soul of the generation, you like it, you prefer a different central soul. All the central souls are coming from the soul of Moses, really starting from the soul of Adam, but the soul of Moses called the Gol Rishon, the first redeemer, and also we're told that an incarnation of his soul is going to be in the last redeemer, Mashiach, Gol Rishon hu Gol Acharon. And it also says his pashtusa de Moshe b'chol dor v'dora. There is a manifestation of the soul of Moses in every generation, and that is in the central soul. The central soul is not separate from us. The central soul is like our much, 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 much larger self. We are splintered off into individual personalities and individual, much more limited, at least in our manifested lives, levels of soul in order to do these more specific missions and to have more like separation and darkness that we can then transform. And within that, we can reveal the light, just like a weightlifter is like lifting heavier weights in order to build bigger muscle. That's really what we're doing. We're doing the deep lifting and the deep transformations that the central souls, any of the great tzaddikim, aren't doing. They're not trapped in darkness. They're not subject to darkness. So they can't do that deep transformation. They can't go into the swamp and, rescue the diamonds from there. But they're there to support us with a far more, I could say infinitely more powerful light. But here's the thing, it's a symbiotic relationship. I know I've touched on this before, if you've heard me talk before, but these things bear repeating over and over, and to hear them and feel them on different levels. And remember, we're transmitting, we're catching the energy of this incredibly powerful day and this incredibly powerful mission. When the Rebbe said this in 1991, nobody could have possibly imagined that the world would look like it does now. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, who could have possibly imagined? So we're in these Mad Max times, but the more that things are moving and shifting, and I heard an influencer today talking about how things are pixelating, use any words you want, but the more things are just diffusing all over the place, the more malleable all of these energies are, and the more focused we get to be in order to harness those energies and take them where they need to be, where they need to go. And that is right into the redemption, right into the possible, impossible, right into the supernatural, the messianic. That's where we're going here. So in our generation, we're the first generation that doesn't have a living central soul speaking to us, responding to current events, telling us why things are happening and what we need to do about them, teaching us, new direct from the prophetic download, mystical Torah. And I've thought long and hard for a long, long time about why that is. And it seems pretty clear that it's because at this point, the light that comes from above, that we've been given, like a child who's been like educated and nurtured and protected and raised in the most beautiful ways, at some point he's got to leave home and go out and create a life of his own, prove himself, activate himself. It seems that now we are in the stage, and have been for a while, where not only is there a lack of leadership, the Zohar actually talks about how the faces of the leaders of the generation will have faces like faces of dogs. That means political, that means spiritual. Obviously not every single person, but it's explained to mean that they're not leaders, they're followers. Like a dog is like running ahead, acting like the boss, but really he's turning around to make sure that the master's following him. So that's one of the interpretations of that. But really, every one of us at this point is meant to activate our own leadership. So the way that the central soul is structured, all the central soul of every generation, which is passed down, it's symbiotic with us. So we each have a spark of that central soul within our own soul. And when we activate that spark within us, it activates the central soul. And the central soul contains all of our souls. That's why it's called the central soul. That's why it's called Rosh. It's like the head, like the brain has a symbiotic relationship with the body, where the brain reflects every cell and connects with every cell, contains every cell, and every cell contains the brain and connects to the brain. So it's like what holds us together. It's like what holds the access for us to nurture ourselves with, for us to grow into, for us to absorb, for us to activate, holds the access to our far higher selves, that divine self. And that's why the central soul of each, that's why the Torah is, I'm assuming anyway, why the Torah is given in the way that it is, starting with Moses, that, God could have given the Torah directly, albeit the Jews, dying at every word, the souls flying out, did say, please don't talk to us. Talk to Moses. But this is the way that the world is structured, because we have to be the most dense, separate, stubborn, cut off beings in order to have total free choice and our own power, not to be blown away by any light at all, but our own real freedom. And yet then we have to have the most access to, if we do the work for it, the deepest, most connecting, most absolutely unifying light. And we, like I started to say before, are living art. We are God's art. But at this final stage, in this final quasi-leaderless generation, or worse, corrupt, deeply corrupt leader generation, we are here to do the final transformations from the inside out. From the inside out. What you accomplish from the inside out, as opposed to what you learn or, obey from the outside in, what you accomplish from the inside out is yours. The light that you experience, any real experience, the insights you experience, the intuitions you experience, the revelations that you experience, the emotions that you experience, everything that you experience from the inside, that is reality to you. That belongs to you. When you try to express it from the inside to somebody else, they'll never get it, unless, like I said about art, they hear enough from you to be able to see that same thing in themselves. This is the ultimate goal, that in this time, in this generation, we discover the God, the truth. And again, I don't mean this in a way that the ego is like, oh yeah. It takes absolute bittul. It takes absolute willingness to be like dust to reality. To know that we have no control in order to activate our deeper light, because there are all these layers of things that are designed to separate us from it. So we have to be wise and discerning, and we have to make mistakes, and then we have to be willing to see that they're mistakes and to correct them and to go further and to go deeper. But the idea is that we are participating, I sometimes call it co-creation, in our final transformation and the final metamorphosis that takes us from natural, from merely human, to supernatural, to activate the central soul, that spark within our beings. That's the mission of the hour, as the term is in Torah, Savasha. It's the call of the hour, the call of the hour. It's the call of the generation. It's the call of the year. It's the call of the month. It's the call of the day. So how do we activate the supernatural within us? How do we activate the godly within us? How do we activate the spark of the central soul within us? And then what do we do with that? So it involves clearing out everything that all of the, like I've talked about previously in the previous few weeks when I did manage to get on, clearing out the addiction to the old traumas and to the old vibrations that are wired into our cells. The cells are addicted to the experiences that we are used to having. So it requires clearing those things out ongoingly. Every time you get triggered, it's an opportunity to actually clear something out for good. A piece of something, you know? Sometimes I think of it as a Velcro. When I get triggered, it's because something snagged on my Velcro, snagged on my trauma Velcro. And now all of a sudden I'm stuck there vibrating at that trauma, usually feeling like really resentful, angry, helpless, you know, whatever it is, sad. So I'm praying to transmit to you that every trigger can be not only seen, but actually used as a platform for a deeper transformation, turning a piece of darkness into light, which is one of the reasons given for why God is creating the world in the first place, so that we can turn darkness into light. Why? Because the light that shines, be with me here, really hear this. This is so key. The light that shines from the outside will never get all the way in. It can't get through the darkness, really. It can override the darkness. Darkness meaning like ignorance, confusion, separation, identity, you know, not knowing, mistake, whatever. You can define it in all kinds of ways. But the light that comes from inside, Hasidus explains that the deepest, most powerful light is hidden in the darkness. So when you have a trauma, when you have a deep fear, when you have a powerful resentment or anger, when you have that Velcro and it gets triggered, inside of that trigger, which is vibrating dark, is a brilliant packet of light that is incomparably greater and more powerful and more radiant than any light that could come from the outside. And especially because when you release it through doing that transformational work, it's now yours. It's shining within. So it's your truth. It's your world. It's what you have and it's who you are. You've released now another, clears a channel. Maybe we have to do this thousands of times, you know, I think we're far along, but there's still plenty of Velcro, and I can speaking for myself, a lot less than there used to be, but a lot more than there will be. Am I completely clear? Absolutely not. Will we become completely clear? Yes. But here's the deal also. It's not just the light from inside. When the darkness makes us real, our separation makes us real, gives us free choice. But when we transform it or transmute it, like this real alchemy, it's not that we become less real. We stay real. We just become transparent. We stop blocking our own essence as well as God's presence, which, at that very core level is, although I can't claim to understand it like deeply, it's the same thing. So this is what we're here to do now. And this is the real reason, the impetus as to why I started the Metamorphosis series. So we're at the end of Nisan. It was meant to go till the end of Nisan. So we're just about there, the 28th. So this is probably the last broadcast I'll do in the Metamorphosis, this particular series. So I'll just remind you, I'm still wearing a bracelet. The bracelet is to catch and delete. Now I don't change hands. I turn it to the left 3 times with a negative thought, replace the thought, or think of something I'm grateful for, turn it to the right. That gives a signal to your brain to delete the negativity. A very, very important tool is to learn to deeply listen. I won't have time to talk about this much right now, but this is something I do extensively in my programs and in my life, to listen deeply to the energy in your body when you're triggered, and to listen in order to hear what's beneath that. We have access to a lot of information at this point once we train ourselves to deep listen. And even if you don't hear anything, even if you're not going for information, just the fact that your attention is on that energy in your body, the Velcro that's been triggered, that already starts to dissolve it and reveal light, make more space. There are levels at which this happens. You could think of it, one of the analogies you could use, there's more than one, but like dropping an ice cube. Let's say the trigger's an ice cube, it's blocking, it's hard, it's constricted, it's cold. So when you drop it into your attention, when you turn your attention on it, it's like dropping it into a pool of warm water and it melts. So now not only is it no longer there in your way, but now the water level, your consciousness, the access that you have to your soul power, to your awareness, to your freedom, everything, to your charisma, to your connection, to your intuition, it expands. Because that was really just water in a stuck form. So this is part of the work that we need to do, to find places of peace, to raise our vibration. There are a lot of things that I maybe will be able to talk about in the future that I had intended if I'd come, for 30 broadcasts instead of 7 or 8, that I would have been able to share. But just be aware that we're doing two things here. Well, the core thing that we're doing, not the two aspects of it, but the core thing that we're doing is we are turning the impossible into possible. We are manifesting the impossible. We are co-creating ourselves so that we express the ultimate paradox, so that we are human and separate and yet connected to the divine source, like being and not being, really being and not being. And that's deeper even than what we've talked about so far. But do we exist as in the way that we think we do? Maybe not in a way. So to find that place, that a paradox, all truth is found in paradox, all real truth, because God is not, kind or strict. God is not light or dark. God is not, God is everything. God is truth. And truth isn't just one-sided. Truth contains all. And we experience it as polarity because that's the way that we hone in to our essence and still manage to remain in existence as separate beings. So look for negative thoughts, delete them. Activate look for the triggers, the Velcro, and spend time feeling that energy with love that will melt the ice. Spend some time, make a list for yourself of at least 20 things that you truly desire. Now, these don't have to be things that you know how you're going to get or that you're even necessarily going to get. They shouldn't be things that you need, because I'm just giving you some techniques super fast to make up for lost time. Because if you need something, what's the feeling of needing? What's the energy of needing? It's an energy of fear, right? It's the energy of lack. So when you need something, you're not actually attracting it. You're not in the vibration of it. You're in the vibration of the lack of it. So you want to make a list of 20 things that you can look at on a paper. This is a written list. And you can feel really good when you look at them. I've got on my list, I have 3 weeks on a luxury yacht with friends and family. Do I think that's ever going to happen? I don't know. Possible, impossible, or impossible, possible. The more supernatural we are, the more everything can and will happen. And, by the way, we're just jumping on to the wave that God is creating and controlling, because God's vision is that we are on the threshold, we're on the verge of absolute redemption, where there is no death and there is no sickness and there is no lack, and probably we can co-create at will, once we're mature enough to handle it. So we've got to get that Velcro out, right? Or else we can't handle it. Otherwise, we can't be trusted with supernatural powers. So get the Velcro out, and then the list. You want to accustom yourself to vibrating in the frequency of the pleasure of things that you desire. So when we're in a need, I know I'm talking fast. When we're in a need, fear, should, or don't want. Need, fear, should, or don't want. We're not in the pleasure of the thing we're focused on. We're in the pain of not having it or having to make it happen or needing to make it happen or being afraid we can't make it happen or not wanting it not to happen. All of that is absolute low vibration trauma. So when we make this list, when you make this list of at least 20 things, you want to make sure that you are able to write them down and focus on them in the way that you can feel the pleasure. The more you can feel the pleasure, that high vibration of, wow, what it would feel like to be on a yacht? What would it feel like to be to have this golden bath of peace that I can jump into anytime I feel triggered? I've been working with that also in the last several weeks. My golden bath of peace. Anytime I feel resistance, I'm like, golden bath of peace. Psh, and I'm feeling it, and it shifts my frequency. So we are attached with our frequency, with our beliefs, with our traumas, with our Velcro, and a bunch of other things. We are attached to the morphic field or matrix of trauma, of gullus, of exile. We want to detach from that strategically, wisely, and over time, maybe not such a long time, and start attaching right away to the field of redemption, to the field of miracles, to the field of divine love and divine blessings, to the field of co-creativity, to the field of freedom, field of aliveness, choosing life. Okay, and we do that by activating ourselves as, I won't use that metaphor. Well, I will, in case you've heard me before. Probably most of you have heard me talk about the butterfly melting down to the caterpillar. That's the Velcro. And then how does the caterpillar turn into a butterfly once it's melted down into gel? Because there's certain cells of the caterpillar, quick review, called imaginal cells, and those hold the future DNA of the caterpillar. So this list is going to give you, not necessarily a list of future events, maybe, but it's going to give you an access, a multi-pronged access to the vibrational frequency of future events. And that's going to help activate your butterfly self, your supernatural self. So as you write this, I want you to write it it probably will take about a week if you actually do it. Write at least 20 items. Then you can shorten them into one-word prompts, because the next stage is to memorize the list in order. And then to start spinning it like as if it's a fan. It's like as if each item's written on a card, and the cards are a fan that's spinning around over and over again, faster and faster and faster. This is called cycling. And as you do it, you're going to create a bag. You want to train yourself to do it even in the background. So while you're having conversation, while you're going to sleep, while you're on your walk, while you're cooking dinner, whatever, you've got this thing spinning of this high frequency of desire with pleasure. Desire is will, and the pleasure of having your will fulfilled, of having the experience that you desire, the pleasure of that. So that will raise the frequency around you and in you. It will change the way your brain functions. It's actually this particular method of memorizing and spinning was created by somebody, if you want to look him up, Dr. William Bengston. He wrote a book called The Energy Cure, and he has done a lot of experiments actually with mice, where they've injected the mice with a cancer, whatever whatever they inject them with, and they all get sick. And then he has himself or other people that he's trained. He hasn't trained them much more than I've just trained you, but they have their list and they're spinning it, they're cycling it, and they sit by the mouse cages and they think about their, the pleasure of their desire fulfilled. And the mice, all 100% of the mice in every experiment got well. It doesn't work as well for people because people are more complicated, because, we have our subconscious mind that's sticking us to the old matrix. That's why we want to start dissolving the Velcro. Really, really important. But it does create some major healing effects for people as well. So that's a secondary effect. And the tertiary effect is that people who do it often experience that they start to get the things that they wrote on their list start to show up in their lives. Once something shows up in your life, you need to remove it from the list and replace it with something else. You always want to be pulling the future in. So let me just check if there's anything else I wanted to say. So when the Rebbe gave his talk on the 28th of Nisan in 1991, he charged us with sharing this information with the world. He charged us with activating people, whoever we could, to do whatever they could to prevail upon other people, to prevail upon God, to release the redemption now. And there's a lot of water under the bridge. What is that now? 34 years, 33 years ago. 33 years ago. By the way, 33 is not a dirty number in Hasidus. It's also a holy number. Anyway, it's really time for us to take this to heart and to take it home. And for a long time, the Rebbe also said that the main path to bringing Mashiach is to learn all aspects from the Torah of what Mashiach is, what Geula is, what redemption is, from all the sources in the Torah, in a manner of Chachma Bina and Das, meaning with the right brain, the left brain, and then going into the heart so that it actually creates a paradigm shift for us. And that hasn't gone away. We need to learn these things. We're learning some of it now. But from what I can see, in the place I am right now in this journey, I'm just one person here, but I've been on the river for, I've been in my little boat on the river, however fast, slow, or snagged by Velcro I've been going. And so I do have a bit of an overview, and it looks to me that where we are right now is the matrix has to dissolve. The trauma matrix is part of the craziness. Is it seems that it is dissolving. The more crazy it gets, the harder it is to believe in it. And the more of us are, like, I see people, it's not just me, I see people around me that I don't expect to be thinking about these things. I'll say, it doesn't see, I'm starting to feel like the world's not even real. And people around me will be like, yeah, I've been talking about that with my friends or my husband, whatever, for a long time now. It really doesn't seem real anymore. So there's something about the deconstruction. Part of the craziness is to facilitate, it seems, a deconstruction of this matrix, of this illusion that's been held in place for a very long time. So it's made it much harder for us to free ourselves from it. And part of it is designed to take our point of reference from outside to inside. That's not so easy because there are constantly things happening, even if we don't have, if our peaceful life is like, a gentle river, may it always be so. If our personal life, peaceful, Freudian slip, a good one, I'll keep it. But even if our personal life is like a gentle river, halabai, please God, the world is like a turbulent tsunami, I don't know what, and getting more so. So it's difficult to continuously refrain from being distracted and pulled into that matrix, pulled back. I am positive that there are many who want to drag us back just in order to prevent this from happening. We live in a world which appears to have a duality or polarity. There really isn't a polarity except that which God is creating within his own being on behalf of his ultimate goal. So it's a temporary means to a unified end. And yet it's really, really easy to get into it. It's really easy. So that's one of the places where being part of a community, a soul tribe that is where you are, that is thinking about what you're thinking about, that's working on what you're working on, that wants what you want, can be super advantageous. There's strength in numbers. And again, we're magnified because we're on mission and we're connecting to the central soul and we're part of God's mission. We're co-creative partners. So we have huge advantages, and just a little bit of real solid effort from us can take us into the supernatural far more quickly and far more amazingly than we might think. So I'm going to suggest that if you're not on my Telegram group, you go join it. The link is below this video, wherever you're watching the video. And share with your friends. Like and share, bring more people. Again, there is strength in numbers. Use the energy of the day. Connect to the central soul. So if you don't know much about the Rebbe, many people do, whether they're Jewish, not Jewish, observant, not observant. The Rebbe touched the lives and minds and hearts of many, 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 many millions of people, including heads of state seeking election. I will tell you that there's a video of Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner by the Rebbe's Ohel the week before the election in 2016. And there are other heads of state that had similar blessings, that came for similar blessings. One time I was in Crown Heights. It used to be that, back in the day, the Rebbe would give out dollars every Sunday for hours and hours. There were lines of thousands of people, and he would just hand out dollars, and everybody was meant to give the dollar to charity. So he was handing out mitzvahs. That is a mitzvah for Jews and non-Jews. It is called the mitzvah sometimes. It's a core commandment, because when you give money, you're giving what you use your life force to get and what you need to sustain your life force. So it's kind of a central mitzvah. But nobody ever gave the dollar from the Rebbe away. They would substitute it with $1 or $5 or $100 or $1,000. They'd give that to charity instead. So one time I was by dollars, as we used to say, and I walked out to the street, Eastern Parkway, and there was a group of, I don't know, 100 Amish people in their costumes. And I went up to one of them and I said, "Why are you guys here?" My husband used to live in Amish country, so I felt slightly related. And the woman that I asked said, "We came to get a blessing from the rabbi." So this influence of the central soul, whether overt or covert, whether people consciously know about him or do not, every soul contains a spark of the central soul. Every soul of generation, and every soul is included in that central soul. That's the access to oneness. Like, again, like the brain is the access to oneness in the body. Without the brain, forget it. Every cell, the cells will not continue to be able to function together. So part of what this mission is, to bring Mashiach in a way of the lights of Tohu in the vessels of Tikkun, also means that each of us, Tohu is the world of chaos. Again, I just have to abbreviate here, and I'm going to stop very, very soon. I have a private class to do very soon. So the lights of chaos, of Tohu, of the world of Tohu, Kabbalistically, are infinite divine lights that are too self-expressed, too infinite as what they are to be able to connect with anything else. It's like kind of like a cosmic my way or the highway. If you were infinitely giving and someone was like, "Don't give that kid another piece of candy, he's going to end up throwing up," you'd be like, "Don't talk to me. It's about kindness. Out of here." And Kabbalah actually explains, it calls these 7 attributes that were of the lights of Tohu, the spheres of Tohu, the 7 kings who ruled and died, because each one of them had their day and was not able to be sustainable because there was no room for anything else. So remember, I said God isn't kindness, God isn't justice, God isn't beauty, God is all. God isn't love, God isn't righteousness, God is everything. Everything is God. Everything's comprised in God. So these infinite lights also represent us as we, in our path of self-development, from natural to supernatural. We need to reveal the infinite lights that are part of us, but that we haven't had access to because we have not created the structure, the overarching holy superstructure of Tikkun. Tikkun is known to mean the rectification of the world. A lot of people maybe mistakenly or maybe partly mistakenly use it to represent the idea of social justice or, just being a better person. It has a little resonance of that, but Tikkun is something vast. Tikkun is to be able to take chaotic forces that wipe each other out and to create flexible, sophisticated, subtle enough vessels that the paradox can coexist and everything can find its connection to everything else, and also be completely what it is, so that we become actualized as our true selves, and yet we do so in a way that we maintain the quality of bittul, that we are connected and humble to the overarching purpose for which we're here, to the overarching source of our souls. So we're completely self-expressed, all lights turned on, supernatural, impossible possible, metamorphosis, and yet the ego is less and less and less in the way. The Velcro is less and less and less present. So we start to shift in our connection to connect to the morphic field, the matrix of redemption, of miracles and blessings. And in that place, things don't take up. One of the qualities of ego is it's my way or the highway. That's the quality of tofu. One of the qualities of the body, of anything physical, is I'm here. Where I am, there's no room for you. Like, I'm sitting on this chair, you can't also sit on this chair. But the higher our vibration is, the more humility we have in our ultimate divine self-expression. in our personal self-expression. The more divinity we have in our personal self-expression, it goes together. The less space we take up. Just one quick story. I might have mentioned it before, but there's a story about two great tzaddikim, the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad, and the Berditchever Rebbe, who was his relative. And they were at a wedding of a mutual relation, and the wedding was very crowded, and it was time for them to leave, and there was no room for them to get out. They couldn't get to the door. So the Berditchever Rebbe said to the Alter Rebbe, should we go through the wall? Maybe we should go through the wall. And the Alter Rebbe said, the time hasn't come for that yet. So just think about this for a second. This is a true story. So what if we could go through walls? How high would our frequency have to be, our vibration, to go through walls? How much humility would we have to have, like a non-being, to be able to be the beings that could walk through walls? So this is the ultimate paradox that we want to go for. Supernatural without the ego attachments. Letting things be, letting go and letting God, nullifying ourselves. That caterpillar has to melt down into gel. It has to melt down. The identity and the ego need to melt down. And yet, reconstituting as a magnificent, flying, beautiful, fairy-like creature. That, the butterfly doesn't live for so long, but we are eternal. And that's part of our butterfly self, for that to be revealed. Anyway, that's what I wanted to share. Let me just see if you guys said anything that I need to. Hi, guys. Picasso or Rembrandt? I was talking about Rembrandt. I don't know about you. Am I channeling Art Bell? I found this time travel is so funny you say this. I used to listen to Art Bell. That was one of my first. My mother turned me on to Art Bell. I don't even remember when my kids were little. I don't know. And when I first started doing summits, I actually listened to Art Bell and then George Norrie, which I never liked George Norrie so much, but Art Bell. I found Dr. Bradley Nelson, who's now a friend. I've interviewed him many times. I found him on the Art Bell show, and I found Dr. David Anderson, the time travel physicist, on the Art Bell show also. Art said to him, "David, welcome. I've been trying to get in touch with you for 5 years. Where have you been?" And David hemmed. Maybe he did disappear into another time. Okay, just scrolling here. I'm feeling the imprint of the message. Okay, thanks guys. Thanks for being with me. I will see you next time. Take care. Download the energy. Don't waste it. You're here for this. Consider this your personal mission. Consider that you are the one. What would you do? What would you change? How deep would your commitment be? How much would you put behind it if you were the one?